The Ivy League has done it again. This is Dr. David D. Shine for a special edition of Saving America, where we award an F grade to celebrities, people who think they're celebrities, politicians, and other waste of space who've managed to catch the public eye, or at least my eye. And this time we're barbecuing some of the heads of some very famous universities. Those are known as the Ivy League, and we're going to throw in MIT and the other whack liberal operations that have sadly become the current situation for many very well-known universities, as the Marxists have been at it for about 50 years. And it seems like as the famous cliche goes, the chickens are coming home to roost. And we don't want to sound too humorous about this, because this is a very tough situation, folks, because discrimination against any particular group is certainly not a positive. And in this case, Jews are being targeted throughout the world. And there's no excuse for a place where certainly they should be safe, and yet they are not. And something that brought this to the public eye was the recent congressional testimony before the U.S. Senate. And it's just an extremely sad situation. I want to read a little bit of this. I usually try in our Saving America episodes to not read too much, but I want to provide a special salute to New York Congresswoman Elise Stefanik. And again, from New York. And again, there's not a lot of conservatives in New York, but she asked the presidents of Penn, Harvard, and MIT about their harassment policies regarding Jews, because of the horrible reported situations there. And that, of course, is not unique to those several colleges, but to many others. But she asked the question, and each president refused to answer the question directly regarding the genocide of Jews. My God, the genocide of Jews. And Penn President McGill, "It is a context-dependent decision," a smiling McGill said, quoting from an article. And Congresswoman Stefanik went right back. "It's a context-dependent decision? That's your testimony, calling for the genocide of Jews is dependent upon the context? That is not bullying or harassment? This is the easiest question to answer. Yes, Ms. McGill." Now, this a particular situation has advanced since that testimony. What has happened is that President McGill at Penn resigned as president, although she still has a tenured position in the Penn Law School, a very prestigious law school, at least up to fairly recent times. And the question becomes, what is the particular situation that should be happening here? And we believe that it is possible that she only resigned not because of the failure to acknowledge that genocide of Jews is not something that should happen on a Penn campus, but that a donation of $100 million was going to be withdrawn. Now, I don't subscribe to blackmail, but I have to wonder if this is a legitimate effort. Again, she doesn't give up a position at the university, but do they really care? Now, I'm going to give you some background here. I have my bachelor's degree from the University of Pennsylvania. I went 50 years ago, I have to admit that. And frankly, it was a left whack operation in certain departments back then. Sciences were somewhat neutral. The sociology, liberal arts were already way over in the Marxist camp. The positive for me was I moved over toward the Wharton School from the college, and the business professors understood the value of positive business approaches and something we call capitalism. In fact, while I was there, Penn started its famed entrepreneurship center, which now has its own building on the Penn campus. Now, there's a little bit of background to this that also ties in with my time at Penn, and that is that there was a significant, large percentage of the student population at Penn who were Jewish. Now, the story backs up into before I was around, which is that the Ivies historically have had a long history of discrimination against Jews. In fact, it became quite critical post-World War II when, due to the GI Bill, there was a huge surge in student population. And big surprise, a lot of Jews began showing up in these universities, and the universities specifically reported to me, Yale and Harvard had set very low quotas for Jews because they didn't want to have large numbers of Jews in their class. So what happened is, if you were a Jew in New York City, and we know that there's a large Jewish population in New York City, they would come to Penn because they didn't want to go to school locally. And obviously they weren't going to go to Penn or to Harvard or MIT or Yale because they were discriminating against Jews. So it was a very comfortable environment. And I didn't observe any discrimination against Jews when I was at the Penn University, the Penn campus. But I am indeed concerned that we've switched from there to now. Now, subsequent to that, the Harvard trustees, who obviously aren't the sharpest tacks around, have indicated their support for President Gay at Harvard. And I think this is a poor decision. And what's interesting about it is, over the last few days, it's come out that she's got some plagiarism issues in some of her publications. So this is a situation that may not be resolved at Harvard, but certainly what we need to do in this country, we need to acknowledge that any form of discrimination against a particular ethnic, religious group is not appropriate and is something that must be condemned, and it must be condemned from the highest levels. How can you hold yourself out as an institution of higher learning where people need to be protected so they can voice their opinions, and then not block a call for genocide of a significant group within the United States, and that is our Jewish population? And remember that the KKK stood for Blacks, Catholics, and Jews. That's right, folks. The Christians are right behind the Jews as this Marxist takeover. Remember, part of Marxism is that the government replaces religion with itself. The government becomes a religion. They are anti-religion. So the Christians need to come back into this game here and support Jews. So to conclude, we issue our famous F grade to the presidents of major universities, including Penn, Harvard, and MIT, for not blocking the genocidal calls for genocide against the Jewish people. This is your host, Dr. David D. Shine. We welcome your feedback. If you've enjoyed this episode, we encourage you to subscribe on your favorite platform.